Each year, millions of young Americans begin college excited and optimistic about their future. But there's a dark side to a college education, and its name is student loan debt.
Student loan debt has really been a challenge for especially our first-time buyers. A lot of folks have had to borrow money to get through college, which is something that the other generations, like my generation, didn't really have to face.
It's pretty difficult now because you have a lot of student loans, you have all these expenses that the previous generation probably wasn't really accustomed to. So it's very difficult for my generation to particularly save for a down payment.
Student loans are a double-edged sword. On the one hand, with today's rising tuition rates, they enable our next generation to pursue a degree and, at least in theory, someday earn a better living. On the other hand, there's always the risk that the job won't be as high-paying as hoped, or that the debt will be more than expected. And in the worst of all cases, students incur debt, but then don't end up graduating. Think that sounds like a problem? Well, the real problem is that the number of students borrowing, the amount they have to borrow, and even the frequency with which students are having a hard time repaying student debt has grown. Today, America's student debt is second only to home mortgage loans.
The student debt situation has exploded. In the past 10 years, the total aggregate student debt outstanding has tripled. This is tremendous fast growth that is occurring.
And while most borrowers are between 18 and 40 years old, the number of older Americans taking on debt as co-signers for their children and even grandchildren has quadrupled in the past decade alone. Many believe that once their student graduates, they no longer need to worry about the debt they've co-signed for, when in reality, that's when the repayment begins to come due, and former students are more likely to default. In fact, because their kids and grandkids wind up unable to pay, about half of all borrowers over the age of 60 go into default as co-signers just as they're preparing to retire on a fixed income, perhaps cutting back on their own lifestyle expenses. Few realize that their Social Security benefits may be seized.
The young people who are making the right decision of going to colleges, paying student debt on time, it is delaying home ownership entry point by roughly 5 years.
As a result of their role as co-signers, folks over 60 are among the highest student loan defaulters of any age group. Maybe you have no kids or grandkids and are thinking, student debt's not relevant for me. Well, think again. The majority of student loans come from federal sources, backed by your tax dollars. When they're not repaid, that's your tax dollars disappearing. And when college grads can't afford to buy homes, the impact ripples up to folks trying to sell homes and across all facets of local economies. That makes student loan and repayment policies important to all of us. Tell us what you think, or email your questions.